and welcome in to be our guest. And we have with us Tommy McKinnon, one of my very favorite people. And Tommy, you are Vice President of Community Engagement for Baptist Health. You're actually the CEO of Doing Good.
I like that title.
That's a good one. That's you. I've known this man for years and been through all kinds of projects and evolutions. And at the base of everything you've ever done, it was doing something for the good of others. That's why I love you. And now you've done something really big for the love of others. You've written a book.
I have.
A book. And it's called 22 Things. And I want to share this with you. So what actually motivated you to write this book?
Oh gosh, Virginia, that takes us back a long way. Back when I was in college, I had one of those moments where I really struggled as a student. Even though I had the ability to do well, I did not have the direction to do well in my first couple of years of college. And I found myself in a situation where I transferred to a particular school in which I excelled at a very social level, but I didn't do very well in an academic level. And after about a year and a half, I was actually asked to leave that school. And the story could have ended there. And it could have ended quite sad, to be quite honest. But the great news is that I did wind up transferring, and it's salvaging my GPA by finding something that I really had a passion for, and that was English Lit, writing, and public speaking. And ultimately, I wound up salvaging my GPA. I wound up really setting the next step for me in what I wanted to do for a career, and that ultimately led me into healthcare marketing. A path that I never would have chosen, I don't think, had I not had those moments of clarity that came after my initial academic success finally worked itself out.
So that's a good example of it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up.
That's exactly right.
But you had to pay a price for that, and you did it, see?
I did, and it
That's
didn't come
where
without
the
a
choice
few
comes in.
scraped knees along the way. But to further answer your question on how did the book come about, I took that experience as a young person and ultimately a young professional entering into the workforce, and over the course of time reflected back on what I went through. Now, I don't have any special story. We all have our own stories. But what I did find is that in working with a lot of incredible young professionals who were talented and bright and creative, a lot of them had the exact same thought process when they exited college that I had at that time, and that was, how do I even achieve success in such a competitive marketplace? How do I get people to look at me and notice me? How do I position myself for a raise or a promotion at some point? And in my discussions with young professionals I've had the chance to mentor, I've always answered them in the same way with a series of questions. And the first is, how do you define success for yourself?
True.
Because it's different for everybody. Some people want Elon Musk-sized success. Some people want power, they want fame. And some people just want a quiet existence where they're able to come home with joy in their hearts about the meaningful work they did in that day. So everybody's different. And so once we're able to answer those questions, then we can then begin to reflect on, well, how do you want to develop your personal brand? Because our personal brand is what we carry with us throughout our lives. And it ebbs and flows with all of the experiences that we have. But ultimately, that's how people will perceive you. That's how you will ultimately become noticed. And that's how you begin to position yourself for opportunities for advancement.
That's so true. You one time told me there's a thread that consistently runs through that tapestry of life and people. And you had a lot of young people that you work with that came to you, and you had very similar questions from everybody. That's
exactly right. And you know, it's interesting, after receiving so many of the same questions about how do I achieve success, I really put some thought behind that and ultimately developed a list of what started as 8 and then became 17 and ultimately rounded out at 22 different characteristics and behaviors that I saw in leaders that I had worked for, leaders that I had never known but admired from afar, and even just people who wouldn't be considered a leader from a title perspective,
Okay.
but who were exceptional in what they did every day. And so I ultimately wound up putting those behaviors on paper, and it basically just started out as a list. And in talking through with some of these, with a lot of the young professionals I've worked with, they began to have these aha moments that first, this is not information that is shared in any high school or college. It's not found on any syllabus. These are behaviors that we have to learn on our own. And you and I, we had to learn it through the school of hard knocks, right?
That's right.
We had to, we kind of figure it out through trial and error.
Yeah.
Nobody told us specifically, this is what you need to do. And through 22 things, I believe that I put together a pretty good list that ultimately becomes a guidebook for young professionals, emerging professionals. And frankly, it's not even just a young audience. It could be people who are young at heart, who are seasoned professionals, but maybe need just a refresher in some of these elements. And simple things about how you develop relationships along the way, how you cultivate those relationships, and ultimately, once you get into a leadership position, how you leverage those leadership qualities into meaningful ways that you can give back to your organization, to the people who work alongside you and work for you, and to your community as a whole.
I think that's that well-rounded picture. It affects everybody. And we're going to talk some more about some specifics here that we have next week, because I think it's fun to learn. I don't care how old or young you are. We all need some help along the way.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, Tommy. We appreciate it. And we'll see you again next week, and we'll just get even better. So
Thank you,
thanks a
Virginia.
lot. We'll be right back.